tell the truth about her crime. Gypsy Rose will never tell the truth about her crime or the reason for it. As far as I am concerned, she is nothing more than scientific study. The level of delusion and lack of self-awareness mixed with sadism is shocking. Though she will never tell the truth, I imagine it went a little something like, the Louisiana sun burned hot against the cracked pavement of the small-town park, where a cluster of mothers watched their children play. Among them, Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard stood with her eyes fixed on her daughter, Gypsy Rose. Gypsy had been running moments before, her laughter carrying on the humid air. But suddenly, like a puppet whose strings had been cut, she collapsed onto the ground. Gasps filled the air. Dee Dee rushed forward, her heart hammering. "Gypsy baby, what's wrong?" she cried, kneeling beside her. Gypsy's lashes fluttered as she let out a small, pitiful moan. The world around them blurred, the concerned faces of strangers melting into the background. Gypsy peeked through the slits of her eyes, waiting. It was always the same, her mother's frantic hands stroking her forehead, her panicked voice promising they could leave, that she wouldn't have to stay. Gypsy never liked when adults told her what to do, and she had long since learned how to bend the situation to her will. When Dee Dee scooped her up, abandoning the park and the scolding look of the other mothers, Gypsy let a small smirk cross her lips. The act had worked yet again. Years earlier, in the quiet town of Cutoff, Louisiana, an accident had nearly cost Dee Dee her foot. The car had come out of nowhere, a blur of metal and screeching tires. Her body slammed forward, and when she awoke, she found her leg mangled and her foot barely attached. She endured surgery after surgery, pain gnawing at her nerves, but she survived. Gypsy, barely 6 years old, had been in the car too. But aside from a few scratches, she was unharmed, at least physically. In the days that followed, she stared at her mother's bandaged foot, at the fuss the nurses made over Dee Dee, and she decided she wanted that attention too. "Mama, my legs don't work," she murmured one night, blinking up at Dee Dee with wide, innocent eyes. Dee Dee froze. "What, baby?" "I can't feel 'em. I think they're broken." The worry in Dee Dee's eyes was instant. Doctors poked and prodded, but no medical explanation surfaced. Yet, Gypsy remained steadfast. She refused to stand, refused to take a step. And so, a wheelchair appeared. At first, Dee Dee questioned it. How could this have happened? But the guilt gnawed at her. Maybe the accident had damaged Gypsy more than doctors realized. And if Gypsy was sick, Dee Dee needed to be the best mother she could be. But Gypsy wasn't sick. She simply saw how easy it was to mold the world around her. The manipulation stretched into every corner of their lives. At mealtime, if she didn't like what was on her plate, she wouldn't just push it away. No, that wouldn't be dramatic enough. Instead, she'd gag, spit, and cough until her face turned red, until the food was taken from her sight and Dee Dee, frantic, would promise to find something else. When night fell, another routine played out. Gypsy would wet the bed, her small frame shivering as she whimpered to her mother. "Mama, I can't help it," she'd whisper, her voice laced with despair. But the truth was, she wanted the diapers. The feeling of being coddled, of being someone so fragile and helpless, was intoxicating. Dee Dee believed her, because why wouldn't she? Her baby girl was sickly, delicate. At least, that's what Gypsy made sure everyone thought. Yet, beneath the angelic facade, a different Gypsy lurked, one who listened more than she let on. One who absorbed every detail of those around her, waiting for the right moment to use it. She played dumb when it suited her, her voice pitched high, her words slow and uncertain. But when backs were turned, when no one was watching, she moved with the precision of a spider spinning its web. Calculating, conniving, a narcissist, a sociopath in the making. And with every passing day, Dee Dee fell deeper into the trap, tangled in the web Gypsy spun so carefully. Long before the wheelchair, the headlines, and the murder that shocked the world, Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard was just a girl trying to survive the sharp edges of her childhood. In the sweltering heat of Cutoff, Louisiana, the air hung heavy with the scent of salt, sweat, and secrets. The Peter household was no sanctuary. It was a war zone of harsh words and colder silences. Emma Peter, Dee Dee's mother, had a tongue sharper than any knife. "You're fat, you're stupid, you'll never be anything," she would snap, her voice slicing through the air like a whip. To Emma, cruelty was currency, and she spent it freely on her daughter. Dee Dee would shrink under the weight of her mother's insults, but in her heart, flames quietly burned. Because Dee Dee was far from stupid, she was brilliant, sharp, calculating, observant. She just learned early that intelligence wasn't something you showed in the Peter house. It was something you hid, like bruises under long sleeves. She escaped where she could, in music, in movement, in the neon glow of New Orleans' smoky nightclubs. It was the early 1990s, and the streets pulsed with rock and rebellion. Dee Dee, just 23 and full of restless hunger, would lose herself in the crash of drums and the echo of guitar riffs. She'd tilt her head back, close her eyes and feel, if only for a moment, free. It was in one of those clubs that she met him. He stood near the bar, all charm and awkward confidence. Dee Dee thought he was over 21. He had to be, right? The club wouldn't let minors in. He smiled, offered her a drink, and she accepted. His name was Rod Blanchard. He was only 17. They hooked up quickly, the way fire catches dry leaves, and the spark became something more. Dee Dee was pregnant. When her father, Claude Pitre, found out, his stern face darkened into something unmovable. Claude was a man built from old timber and swamp grit, silent, towering, and impossible to defy. He demanded Rod marry Dee Dee, and so he did. But love was not part of that equation. Rod was a boy caught in the storm of a grown man's consequences. He drank too much, thought too little. On the day of the wedding, while guests waited and Dee Dee adjusted her veil with trembling fingers, Rod was sitting in a jail cell, arrested for DUI. Claude bailed him out, jaw clenched, eyes burning with humiliation. It didn't take long for it all to fall apart. Dee Dee, ever hopeful, tried to make it work. She took a job at the local hospital, where she met a woman named Christy. Christy smiled, laughed, confided in her like a sister. Dee Dee thought she had a real friend. But behind her back, Christy was meeting Rod in secret, sharing more than just drinks. He spiraled deeper. Another woman, another pregnancy, another betrayal. The marriage collapsed under the weight of his lies. When Gypsy Rose was born, Dee Dee was still living in the same house she always had, with Emma. That tiny, squalling baby with wide eyes and a tight grip came into a world already steeped in bitterness. Emma Pitre was there, standing beside the hospital bed with a curled lip and a cold stare. Dee Dee, exhausted and alone, brought her child home to the place she had never escaped. The walls of that house had not changed. You let him leave you. You're a failure, can't even keep a man. And now you've got a mouth to feed and no money. Rod offered no support. His voice, once playful, now rarely came through the receiver. He gave excuses, not help. And Emma's words rained down on Dee Dee day after day like shards of glass. The emotional beatings never stopped, each one cutting deeper than the last. But inside, Dee Dee's fire still burned. What the world would one day see as darkness began here, in this place, under the weight of humiliation and abandonment. She had learned one unshakable truth. If no one is going to protect you, you must become the one who controls the game. And so, the stage was set. The lies, the illusions, the manipulations, they didn't begin with Gypsy. They began with a girl who was told she was nothing, and decided she'd become everything to her daughter. She would love her the way she had wanted her mother to love her. Gypsy would have all of her love, and she would never judge her or hurt her. Dee Dee went into labor clutching the phone, trying to reach Rod, but of course he was too busy snorting lines off Christy's chest and playing a game of how many bad decisions can we fit into one night. Spoiler, they broke the record. When the baby finally arrived,